call the meeting to order. And I see that we have Commissioner Weatherall and Commissioner Wilkins on, so we have a quorum. And then for 2.0, additions and revisions to the agenda. I'm getting, anybody else? Okay. So I'd like to add 6.5, which is consider approval of resolution number R 2020-0-12, which is a resolution adopting the furlough policy. And then do an update on the CUP date and when we'd like to see that. Are there any other additions or revisions to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay. So we'll move on to 3.0, which is correspondence and public comment. We just have one, well, first, let's do public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand. If you're on the Zoom platform, there's a little button where you can actually raise your hand, but we can be more informal and folks can jump in if they have a comment or a question. To be recognized by the chair, give your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Does anybody have any public comment at this point? If you're on the phone and you need to speak, you can push *6 to unmute. So it doesn't look like we have any for now, but if someone wants to jump in later, feel free to do so. We do have correspondence from the City of Condon that I'll just go ahead and read on the record because it's pretty short. This is coming from Mayor Jim Hassing from the city. It says the City of Condon is requesting to work directly with Gilliam County on economic development projects that affect our city. The council feels strongly that working directly with Gilliam County's leadership team and staff will simplify the flow of projects, ideas, and funds. Economic development goals for the City of Condon include housing, broadband, and business retention. The city has partnered with Gilliam County on all 3 of these items, and other partners include Pioneer Community Development Corporation, Condon Chamber of Commerce, and Condon School District. The projects have created the Fiber Council, revitalized Main Street through its Main Street Grant Program in the historic district, plus are working on a project that will create housing on the Condon Grade School property after the school moves to Gilliam campus. The past several years, the council and staff have taken the lead on economic development priorities in Condon, but it has become harder to move projects forward with limited staff. Having Gilliam County staff available to do the technical research and writing would be a huge asset to the City of Condon to attain their goals and priorities. We look forward to hearing from the Gilliam County Court regarding our request. Sincerely, Jim Hassing, Mayor.
So what are our next steps in that?
So my thought is if this is something that we would like to pursue, I would be happy to put together sort of an overview or an initial plan on how economic development might look if the county were to partner directly with cities and really take over our economic development functions. Would that be of interest to you guys if I put something like that together?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a look at something.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea. We can, I mean, it's just helping everyone in the county if we partner up.
Yeah. Okay, I will plan on doing that and try to bring something back for our first meeting in May here in a couple of weeks. Let's move on to the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. I think I saw Leslie second, that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of April 1st regular meeting minutes. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let's move into 5.1 under unfinished business, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2020-01, an ordinance for special weed assessment in Gilliam County. So this is coming back to us for a second reading. We held hearings on the assessment March 18th in Arlington, and then on April 1st via video conference, and we did the first reading during that April 1st meeting. And so if the court's ready, we would be looking at doing the second reading and then adoption of the ordinance today.
I move to have the second. You want to go?
No, go ahead.
I move to have the second reading of ordinance number 2020-01 by title only.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we have the second reading of ordinance number 2020-01 by title only. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, I will read the ordinance. In the County Court for Gilliam County, Oregon, ordinance number 2020-01, an ordinance for a special weed assessment within Gilliam County. Hey guys, I think I'm back. Sorry about that. I'm using a hotspot in here, so I need just a minute. I'm going to plug my phone in so that I don't lose internet again. So give me 30 seconds. Okay, here we are. All right, so we moved and seconded that the second reading of ordinance number 2020-01 to accept it by title only and to adopt the ordinance. And I cannot remember now if we all said aye, so let's just do a vote one more time on the record so it's recorded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, let's move on to 5.2, which is Frontier Telenet update. The Frontier Telenet board had a meeting last week, and not a lot going on. We approved a bid to replace some batteries that were in need of a replacement at Erskine over in Sherman County. And then we are also talking about moving forward with the Roosevelt project, which is the tower that's over on Washington, and it's got a shelter that is in need of some roofing work and electrical and a new generator. So I had originally proposed that we get a project manager to do that for us. And I was going to combine that with the Cottonwood Tower, but the other judges did not agree with that approach. So we are going to be doing Judge Morley's idea, which is to do two separate project managers for those projects. So I'm hoping that we'll have RFPs back from him maybe as early next week, and that we can meet here in the next couple of weeks and move forward on that. So that's pretty much it at the moment. We should be getting started with the budget process here pretty shortly with Frontier Telenet. And other than that, it's pretty quiet. Any questions? Okay. Let's move into new business then, which is award the bid for South Gilliam County Emergency Services Building Backup Generator. So this is a project that Jeff Schott has been working on, and so he put out an RFP for bids. We had 4 bids come back. This is for a propane power generator, and you see the bids in there in your briefing. Pillar's recommendation is that the bid be awarded to Hague Electric and Construction for the amount that they proposed, which is $77,592.40. They were the lowest bidder, and they were also the electricians on the original building. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. Commissioner Weatherall?
We've done, at the museum, we've done a lot of work with Hagee, and they've been very good. So I don't have any, I think it's good to move forward with them.
Great. Do we have a motion?
I move to award the contract for the backup generator project at the South Gilliam County Emergency Services Building to Hague Electric and Construction in the amount of $77,592.40 for the bid dated April 10th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we award the contract for the backup generator project at the South Gilliam County Emergency Services Building to Hague Electric and Construction in the amount of $77,592.40 per the bid dated April 10th, 2020. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let's move on to consider approval of Public Transportation Director position description.
Did we skip one?
We did. Never mind. Let me go back to 6.2. Consider approval of resolution number R 2020-11, a resolution adopting a background check policy and procedure. So this is basically an update of the criminal background check process. I think the previous court had passed one several years ago, and so this is just sort of an update, making sure it's still in alignment with current law, and sort of spelling out a consistent process when we're doing pre-employment checks, so that we're clear on who's doing what. And there was a little where the policy was really unclear. The original policy was unclear. Was currently, when we're doing pre-employment, we basically send the release. So everybody who we're going to check signs a release that goes to the sheriff's office, and Chris runs a check basically that says yes or no, that there's something there. And where there was a disconnect is when she was writing yes, it wasn't always clear who was going to follow up to, because she doesn't share what's actually in that criminal record. It's that there's another step to actually go see what's in the criminal record, and that wasn't being applied consistently during hiring processes. So this just kind of cleans that up and makes it clear that that responsibility falls to Lisa as the chief of staff to do that follow-up, and then also spells out if there is something in the criminal record, sort of the consideration that the county will have in terms of whether that impacts their eligibility to be hired. So, any questions about it?
Was it reviewed by council or CSI or?
Lisa, that might be a question for you. I don't think it
Okay, helps if I unmute myself. It hasn't been reviewed by council as yet. It has been reviewed by the sheriff and obviously by Chris. It's pretty straightforward. It is mostly born out of a template that CIS provide us. And we've obviously adjusted some components of that to work for our specific needs between Chris and I, and who plays which role within the background check. But if you would prefer, I can certainly run it by them again one more time.
I don't think so. Looks pretty straightforward from what I've worked with in the past. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Weatherall?
No, I thought it was well written. I would move to adopt resolution number 2020-11 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number R 2020-11 as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're going into consider approval of Public Transportation Director position description. So this is basically born out of some of the new hiring that we have done with the Public Transportation Department. So last year, if you recall, our last budget season, we authorized the hiring of a new full-time dispatcher. And so that, Naya's been in place now for almost a year. What that has led to, obviously, is that Marla, who is serving as currently her job description as coordinator, has really started to take on more of a managerial role. So she's, she's the one that's sort of assigning work to employees. She's in charge of hiring those employees. Lisa will be working with her on learning how to do performance management and termination, those kinds of things, sort of coaching her on how to really manage her department. And given that she pitched to us during the last, during her last report that she will also be asking for us to be looking at hiring some part-time drivers to support the fixed routes that, again, all of this is funded by state grants, I want to note for the record. Anyway, it just seems like we need to adjust the job description to fit what's actually being asked of her. So, so Lisa has put together a position description for Public Transportation Director that really captures those management duties that, that are part, really, what we're asking her to do already. Because the new position would supervise and discipline employees that are in the bargaining unit, we have classified it as non-represented. So if we decided to move forward, basically the process would be that we would notify the union that we've created this position, that we believe it to be excluded from the union because of the managerial position responsibilities. And so anyway, and then they would have a period of time where they could get back to us if they felt that that was not an appropriate classification. So in addition, if we approved this, the transportation director would become a salaried position, and then the compensation would be finalized when we look at the salary schedule later this spring. And so I would anticipate, if we move forward, that I would fill it using a direct appointment of Marla, but that it would become effective July 1, 2020, just so that it's a little cleaner and we can get the salary schedule worked out and figure out what that looks like before we do the actual hiring.
And Marla meets all of these qualifications.
I believe so, yeah. And I don't know, Lisa, if you want to add anything more about how this came about and where this recommendation is coming from.
I think you framed it up really good, Judge. So Marla is on board. We've had the discussions. I've also had her review the position description to make sure she feels it accurately reflects the work being required of her, which she does. And so if you have questions, specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I don't have any more specifics to add at this point.
I think that the component, making the position salaried is going to be very helpful. It sounds like in the past she's run into, issues with overtime, and so a little more flexibility in that regard would be good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the nature of the work means that she can be receiving calls at any time of the day and sometimes the night if people have already made a reservation for transportation for a medical appointment and then it gets cancelled. That usually lands on Marla's phone late at night. So it does give her that flexibility that the work requires.
Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
I move to approve the position description for Public Transportation Director as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the position description for Public Transportation Director as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let's move on to 6.4. This is discuss Cedar Springs Lane relocation proposal. And I see that Dewey's on the line. Dewey, is your phone still working?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. All right. I'm here then.
So I'll just set this up, Dewey, but then I'll hand it over to you. So this is born out of the concerns that we've been hearing from the public about railroad crossing delays near the waste management site. And so a couple of weeks ago now, Waste Management requested that Dewey and I join them for a conference call to discuss some possible solutions. So we held a call, Dewey and I did, with Dave Lowe, and I'm trying to remember who else was on there, Leah, Shannon, and a couple other people. And one of the things we discussed, which we also discussed when we were on the road tour, was the possibility of just relocating Cedar Springs Lane so that it just totally, we don't have to deal with the crossing anymore. It would go around. So Dewey, I don't know if you want to take it from there. One of the things we discussed is because the tonnage is down at the site right now, that Waste Management had thought that they would be able to offer up some manpower and some equipment since some of their folks, they're in a slower period right now with COVID-19. And so that was part of the discussion as well. But Dewey's worked up an estimate of what those costs would look like. And so Dewey, I think I'll just turn it over to you if you want to talk about sort of what we're talking about here and potential costs and timing, all that kind of stuff. I'll let you take it.
All right. With the discussion with Waste Management, John Borghese was actually included in the call also. We came to the conclusion that this would probably be the best fix, and a long-term fix would be just to move the road. There would be no impact by the train then or anything. So I moved on from there, actually contacted Herb Hosaffel, who is the owner of the property to the south of the rail tracks. So he's the only one that will be impacted by the project. Herb was going to actually get with Waste Management to discuss the right-of-way and what options Waste Management would have as far as his loss of property. And I guess a long-term lease is what Herb was looking for the giving up the 26 plus acres that he'd be losing. Then in other conversations with Waste Management, they said that they would supply trucking. It's basically what they would be giving us, which would be freighting the rock from the quarry where the crusher is set up right now, from there, the 2.3 miles to the beginning of the project, and then on down to the rest of the road. They said they could provide upwards of 5 trucks. Then they kind of backed off of that, thought that maybe if the tonnage came up that they wouldn't, but then in other discussions with John Borghese, he said if we start this project, that they will dedicate whatever equipment we need to get the job done and get it done efficiently. My time estimate is 60 days, 60 working days to do the project. That's from beginning to end. That's to grub it. We would do, the road department would do all the work other than hauling of the rock. And we'd do some of that also with our smaller trucks and stuff as was needed. I kind of broke it down, equipment needs, equipment costs. This is all based on the 60-day working time we'll need each piece of machinery. The materials are the big cost. The rock which we produce, this is what Gilliam County rates. the culverts, the fabric. Waste Management thought they might possibly have the fabric. If they have that, that's a small savings, but it is a savings. And then the paving and the chip seal, the finishes and stuff. Any questions?
As this is a special project and not something that was actually scheduled into your program for the year,
Right.
there's no estimated cost for labor that would be taken away.
It's all calculated into the equipment cost, Sherry.
Okay, all right.
Or Commissioner. Yeah, that's all calculated in as our equipment rates.
Okay,
Yeah.
and Sherry is fine by the
In
way.
that. Yeah. Let's see, I had another thought that left right before that, but
So what role does Waste Management play in this besides providing some of the trucking? Is there any monetary?
well, that's what I don't, that's where the negotiations will have to come in. If we do this project, this is kind of the cost it'll be. Right now with the COVID-19 stuff, the estimate from Association Oregon Counties is to their projection is a 50% decrease in our gas tax funding. And so what it's kind of done to us, because everything is kind of in flux and we're questioning what's going on, I would just move all of our summer chip seal work and everything. I would just basically cancel it and move it into next spring. That we'd have more idea of what kind of dollars we have coming in from the state, and do an easier chip seal or an earlier chip seal season next year rather than do it at our summertime. So we could basically move down as soon as the graders are done grading, we would move down with the whole crew and just knock this job out. Okay. And just dedicate all of our time to this unless we had a disaster or something happen. Then we just jump off of that, go do that job, and then back on it again. Try to get it done as quick and as efficient as possible.
Other questions, ladies?
Well, Sherry had on my main question is who's paying for what? That was what I was worried about.
So there's a portion, keep in mind that the road agreement, there's a portion that they pay every year. And I don't know, have we used any of the funds from the current year that they've paid in, or could this be
We
used?
have not.
Okay.
No,
so I think
right now there's 303. Oh, I'm sorry. There's 303,000 in that fund right now, and that's supposed to go to Cedar Springs Lane.
So if this project does go through, then we would vacate and transfer ownership of the current road from where we come off and go back on, would then
Correct.
Waste Management.
Yes. We would basically give them Cedar Springs Lane, which would be old Cedar Springs Lane, from the first rail crossing there at the south end of the industrial park to right around where the yellow double wide trailer is. Would be cut in the intersecting point where the Cedar Springs would tie back into the existing road. And then that road would be their responsibility from then on.
So for me, I mean, I think this is a solid solution for what has been an ongoing problem. I mean, I think if we can resolve the railroad crossing issue, I mean, it's more than a waste management benefit. It benefits everybody who's trucking during, you know, harvest season and folks who are trying to get to work and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So to me, that, at least from my perspective, sort of the thing that I think is just the open question is, do we want or would we expect that Waste Management pick up a greater portion of the cost than the 303 that's currently there? Or do we consider that enough of a contribution?
Yeah, I think that's something that needs some deep discussion on. The other thing is, if we vacate and transfer the current road to Waste Management, what is that property value and what does that look like?
What do you think, Leslie?
Well, I struggle with this just a little bit because I still believe that if they manage the tracks differently, another road wouldn't even be necessary. But that doesn't seem to be happening, and I'm not sure why it can't happen, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So I worry a little bit about that. I also think that Waste Management should pick up a greater portion of the cost than just the hauling freight. Another thing I'm a little bit concerned about is just making sure that we have a very good contract and everything, every detail in writing as far as, you know, how the hauling the rocks can work, and you know, that we have a firm commitment that that's going to take place and continue on throughout the whole project. But those are just some of the things that I'm worried about, just, you know, starting the discussion on this.
Yeah, I think Dewey's right in that, well, there's a lot that needs to be worked out before we actually get started. So hurrying and doing it in the next few months I don't think that's something that we want to do. I think we want a solid plan in place, and spring of 2021, when we can really focus on it, I think is a really good, much better plan than to make any.
Well, spring of 2021 would be when we would do our county work. Right now would be the time to actually do this project where we don't know what our funding's going to be, our state funding and stuff. So we're kind of sitting here. We'll be sitting kind of idle, I guess. Sherry is what I'm saying right now.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, spring of 2021 would be when we would do our county maintenance on our county roads. That way we'd know more about our funding and where that money would go the best then.
So Dewey, do you have a sense of, I mean, we've got what our cost would be for our equipment, but for waste hauling, I'm just trying to, you know, in the road department, in the agreement that we have with them right now, I think the cost split is 80%, 20%.
Correct.
And so, you know, they've got the 303 that can all go toward their 80%, but I'm wondering if you've been able to put sort of a dollar figure on what their portion of hauling, you know, the trucking piece that they were going to do, how much you would estimate that to be of value.
Okay. I've got roughly 42 days of trucking. 5 trucks, 8 hours a day for 42 days is what it will take to haul the base rock, get it laid out and compacted and ready, and then to haul the top rock on top. And it might go faster than that. There'll be days where it might go a little slower, but 42 days should be more than enough to do what needs to be done with their trucking. As far as the cost, I don't know what they value their trucks at. Our trucks or trucking right now is roughly $1,000 a day for a semi. So $5,000 a day times 42, I guess.
Okay. So that gives us at least a little bit of sense of what Waste Management's contributions are so far. Commissioners, is the idea that we want to try to get them to hold to the 80-20, or what's your feeling on that?
Where are we getting the money? What line item are we taking in $2 million from?
Hey, Dewey, that might be a question for you.
It would basically it would come out of wages, fuel, and parts and repairs. The big ticket would be the asphalt side, and the asphalt side is a question that we have every year: how much money we're going to have to do that. We're looking at right at about $750,000 to pave that 4.5 miles, and that would be the dollars that we'd have to come up with, would be the asphalt side of it. We make the gravel. The crusher is actually producing the material right now, everything that we need. It just comes down to the asphalt side of that.
So was Waste Management invited to participate in our meeting today and help us with this discussion?
We did not specifically invite them. We basically, I think, wanted to get a general sense from you guys on if you thought this was something you wanted to pursue. So we could, though, because we're going to be meeting again here in another week and a half, 2 weeks, ask them to join during that conversation if you wanted to talk figures.
Okay. I just don't want to rush into this and say, okay, let's do it now. And I'd like some legal advice on what some of this looks like, the transfer, the old road to Waste Management, what kind of value does that have to us? And I have a lot of questions.
Okay, so how about this as a next step? Because I think we do at least want to try to keep the conversation going. So would it be, would folks feel open if we invited Waste to participate during the next county court meeting?
Yes, please.
Does that sound?
Yeah, and maybe we can get some of our questions answered in between, just so we have more information.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would wonder about, is how much work could be happening between now and then too. If any, if like Liz or our judge could be talking to anybody before the meeting to, iron out some stuff or at least get questions answered.
Okay. So how about this? If you guys have questions that you think of that you would like us to work on, if you can just send those to Teresa, and then we'll get started on, we'll work with Dewey and figure out what those questions are. Do folks generally, I think maybe what I'm asking is, generally, if we can work out the money side of things, are we generally in agreement that this is the direction we'd like to head?
Well, I think it is a sensible solution to the problem. It alleviates a lot of of the issues that we're having, and it gets waste management off the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think if we can work out the money details,
Okay.
something to look
So
into.
we will spend a little bit more time getting those details hammered out. And like I said, if you can send any questions, concerns that you have that waste management needs to come prepared to answer, as well as questions that you'd like staff to work on, if you can send those to Teresa, we'll get those rounded up and plan on putting this back on the agenda when we meet next, if that works for everybody.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we will do that. Let's move on to 6.5, which is consider approval of resolution number R 2020-12, a resolution adopting a COVID-19 furlough policy. So this is basically a recommendation that came in from our insurance provider, CIS, that we, because of COVID-19 and sort of the impacts that it has had, and also the unknown about how long this will last and what impacts it may have on funding and workforce and all those kinds of things, CIS is recommending that municipalities adopt a COVID-19 furlough policy. It's just based on, so the language that you have is came directly from their attorneys, and in any way, it would be something that would just be a tool, should it be needed down the road, for restructuring of the workforce while we're in the middle of this national emergency. Questions about it?
I don't think I have any questions.
Leslie, you good?
No, I was just looking for it. Hold on. Yeah, no, I don't think I had any questions either.
Okay.
I move to adopt resolution number R 2020-12 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number R 2020-12 as presented. Is there further discussion?
That's my dog.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, last thing that I've got is I just wanted to get some clarity from the court. When we had met on March 18th, the last time we met in person, we had just very briefly discussed the conditional use permit and the timing of that. Originally, we had asked that come back by June 30th, and we had indicated that we would provide some flexibility because of what was happening with the pandemic and the Planning Commission's ability to meet because of social distancing. And so I wanted to let you guys know that the Planning Commission is moving forward with that. They've got, I think, a work schedule or work session scheduled this evening, actually. But I wanted, just so that we're clear on expectations, and so Michelle Colby kind of knows what timelines we're looking at. I just wanted to check in with you and see. It looks like they're about a month behind on where they normally would have been had we not had this pandemic in this process. So I'm wondering the court's feeling in terms of, would we be comfortable to try to have that back to us by the end of July instead of the end of June? Or if you guys had some thoughts on when we'd like to see that product come to us.
Yeah, under the circumstances, I think it's only right to extend the time frame.
Okay.
I agree.
So is July, is that enough time, or would you like to give them more time?
What are they thinking? Have they expressed a concern of how much time they need?
So I don't think that they've definitely sort of pushed back on the original time frame. The meeting tonight will be their second work session. So my hope is that they're fairly close to having a product that they could go through the hearings process with. So just sort of mapping out, I'm thinking if they are able to wrap that up and the committee feels good about where they are, they could probably have hearings sometime next month. And then, you know, probably be sending it to us sometime June timeframe, I think is probably reasonable. Of course, then we have to go through the whole noticing process in order to have the hearing. So realistically, with all those timeframes built in, I would say probably late July is a reasonable timeframe to make sure that we hit all those marks in terms of noticing and all of the loops or the hoops that both entities have to jump through to hold hearings.
Okay, so July 31st?
Yeah, if that works for you guys. That work for you, Leslie?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted some clarity because I think Michelle was feeling a little bit like, what does an extension actually look like? And just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing the mark on that expectation. So with that, I think we'll go into announcements and next meeting. So the next meeting is May 6th. I think we'll just continue to hold to our first and third Wednesday schedule. We will likely be meeting again via video conference unless something changes with the governor's office, but I'm thinking we're still probably going to be in the same boat in 2 weeks as we are today. The other thing, just for the public's edification, you have probably noticed that we did not hold our budget hearings in April. And so those we are looking at rescheduling to late May right now. So we're working out a few last details on that, but we're looking at the last 2 weeks in May to schedule those. So as soon as we have those details firmed up, we'll obviously do all the public notices and the legal notices and all that kind of stuff. But I just, for folks who are wondering when we're going to get to grants and all that kind of stuff, that will come in late May. Any other announcements or things that the two of you wanted to raise while we're together?
Norcor is moving forward. We had a budget meeting on the 16th, and we will have another whatever the third Thursday is in May. So Norcor is moving forward with the budget process.
Fantastic. And then Leslie, did I see that public health is going to be maybe asking for some more money?
That's always on the table. But we are having a special meeting next week for public health. We've been having some extra meetings. So I will find out more and update you.
Sounds good. And then just since we've got you here, and so the public, because I'm sure the public is eager to hear about reopening, the governor held a conference call with county electeds or county commissioners earlier in the week, and is starting to put some meat on a reopening plan and what each community or each county would need to have in place and follow in order to start the reopening process. It looks like it's going to be sort of a staggered, phased approach. So, and that she is open to doing that regionally. And so counties that meet certain requirements could be eligible potentially to ask her to lift certain restrictions sort of case by case. So what we've heard is that we'll have a little bit more guidance from the governor's office over the next probably week or two, and that businesses will also, the ones that have been impacted by the executive orders specifically, will be getting new guidance on the things that they would need to do to reopen. So one of the things that the chamber, the Condon Chamber and I are going to be discussing is how we provide sort of that help and assistance to small businesses in preparing for whatever requirements they'll need to do. I mean, it may be things like they may need to test temperatures of customers that are coming in before they allow them in, those kinds of things. So we're just starting to think through what those needs might look like. I will say that the chamber has so far given out I think Kaylin said about $90,000 in grants assistance to folks. So there's about $60,000 left, and there's still a few applicants that are going through that process. One of the things we had talked about was the possibility of those remaining funds, sort of transitioning those into a reopening resource. So for instance, if folks need to have certain provisions in place in their businesses in order to reopen, that maybe those grants could be used for those kinds of things. Or for some of our restaurant and bars that when they closed completely have no revenue coming in and may need some funds in order to purchase, you know, food to reopen, alcohol to reopen, that the chamber may be coming back to us to see if maybe they can repurpose whatever's left in that fund to help businesses with sort of the restart and reopening. So we should expect, probably we'll hear more from Kaylin in the next couple of weeks about what that reopening plan might look like.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, that's all I've got. So with that, it is just shy of 11 o'clock, and unless you guys have anything else, I'll adjourn the meeting.